This is my Module 5, Understanding My Community in Hoxie, Kansas. We should know the customs and traditions. So we're a very traditional small community in western Kansas where your words still have weight, a handshake still means something, and in general, people are expected to act right. We're a fairly active community. Churches are well attended by adults and children. School events are often the highlight of the week. Our Hoxie recreational is our rec sports are very well attended, and we have tons of kids in those. And even for such a small town, we actually, in being such an active community, physical wise, we actually have a gym, even though we're such a small town. While our community is roughly 90% Caucasian, we do have some Hispanic and African American students and citizens. Overall, traditions and belief systems are similar, and similar holidays are honored. There's not a lot of variance there. Hoxie handles change with an air of caution. Positive change, such as starting a school booster club, has been met with a lot of positive attitudes, like, wow, that's a really great idea. I'm glad we're finally getting around to doing that. But while the bond issue to update and renovate the hospital was met with a very negative energy, and a lot of that negative energy came from outside of town, but it's still part of our community. Our known population characteristics. The students who have been recently graduated from Hoxie have been going on to attend a technical school or a public four-year university, while only a handful actually really go straight into the workforce. We do have quite a few that go into technical school, probably even numbers that go into tech school and a public four-year university. The language used in Hoxie is English. We do have a Hispanic population that can struggle with that, but most know enough, or their children who attend school work to learn English. For example, I have a student who speaks it very fluently, but his mother is still learning, so he helps her kind of figure it out. Our average age is about 48 or mid-40s. Our 0 to 18-year-olds, so our school age population is 21% of our population. Only 5% are 18 through 24, which makes sense if they're going off to tech schools and public, four-year universities. 18% are from 25 to 44, and the rest of the population is about 44 or older. So a fairly established older community. We have an unemployment rate of 2.4%, which is a really great unemployment rate and a positive attribute for our town. There are jobs here, and we even have people who work in Hoxie and live somewhere else. We have that many jobs that we just need that much of a workforce. Our known communication channels. Being a very small town, we don't have our own radio station, but there's a local cable channel where community members can post announcements, school activities. I think the daily lunch menu at the school is posted there, just oddities like that. We have 2 newspapers in town. One of them does a much better job covering our school activities other than sports than the other, but with the new competition, they're both pretty good quality newspapers for such a small population. Most people in town look to Facebook or other social media pages for information. For example, our FFA chapter has its own Facebook page, and I have found that to be my most reliable way to get information out to the public about what we're doing. And I often have a ton of feedback on whatever I post there, whether it's that we started our fundraiser or these kids went to this contest today. I feel like it's the best way to interact with our community and for them to see what's happening right now. Our known community groups. We have several community groups for people to get involved in. It's one of the things I love about small towns. If you want to be a shut-in, you can, but it's so easy to get involved in a small town. All of these groups serve a positive purpose and are keeping what is best for the community and the people in it in mind. Often these groups will actually fund scholarships or help with fundraisers for our schools. And if we were to need help, these groups are one of the best places to look. Rotary Club, Masons. Masons actually just started a Teacher of the Year program at our high school, and I think our grade school as well, to recognize an outstanding teacher every year. So that's something, they're doing to support our schools, which is really cool. United Methodist Women or Knights of Columbus or other various church groups. When I interviewed for Huxley, they asked how I plan to get involved, and I said the easiest way to get involved in a small town is to go to church and say, what do you need help with? And I mean, there's all sorts of things that you can do within that community. Booster Club, which is new. Alumni Association, Girl and Boy Scouts, our rec services, which are really popular. The leadership in our town, I wouldn't say there's one figurehead for our town who holds all the power. It's very spread out, and each section has its own leader. Our Board of Education has 6 community members voted on by the community. Our rec board, from our rec services, they're volunteers from the community. And our city and county commissioners are obviously voted on by the community during election. Community leaders characteristics. There's a leader for different areas in our town. If you have an issue with the street lamp, you'd talk to a city commissioner. If you wanted to start a soccer league, you need to talk to the rec board. Things like that. I don't feel as though there's an abuse of power or even an overabundance of power, since each different facet is in charge of different things and it's spread out nicely. The leaders from these boards and the commissioners all want what is best for the community in the future. We all have this same mindset of what's good for the community is good for our kids, is good for our schools, etc., etc. It just keeps feeding. Our known economic conditions. We've generally a very positive work ethic in our town, as a majority of our most successful people in town have been self-made through hard work, and they kind of pass that on. Agriculture is by far our biggest industry. Having agriculture as our largest employment, transportation is also a large industry. Support for our community. Our employment rate is 2.4%, and our average household income is roughly $50,000 for a dual income house, so that's pretty good. With being an agriculture community, most of the land is agriculturally used outside town. However, in town, our home values have actually increased 10% in the last 10 years, which is a positive attribute for our town. We do currently have a renting shortage. What is available to rent in town is often too high priced for the average family just moving to town. For example, when I moved to town 3 years ago, there were 2 available places, and one of them was a duplex for $750 a month, and one was a single-wide trailer for $450 a month. So, again, renting is kind of an issue in town, and hopefully we can move forward and have more of that available. Our political structure, we really don't have an issue keeping politics out of our school, except for the appropriate places such as our government class. That's really the only place that we would see politics that are going on affect the school climate. As a school, we do not generally really release any information of what's going on at the national or state level regarding information, although it would help to extend communication efforts. So, if, when Betsy DeVos was selected, the school itself didn't include in its weekly newsletter, hey, this is happening, these are her stance. Like, we don't really mess with anything like that. Our social tensions. Recently, there's been some issue bullying a minority student from their classmates, but it's an issue that I want to say started outside of school and has gone into school and is outside of school again, and I think it's a lot more on this particular student that's doing the bullying than it is on the minority issue. There's 3 general groups in our school, which is pretty typical for a small school. We have popular students. I call them the ornery students because they're not bad kids. They're just the kids who are usually the ones in trouble. And then the students who would be considered kind of the misfits, your drama kids, debate, like good kids, but they don't fit into any one specific mold, which I love those kids. They make class interesting. Extra sources of information for the community. They could give us questionnaires for the students, and I think we would be comfortable doing so if they were trying to measure interest for like a new summer sport, what the kids want to see happen in town, like what do they want a new park, like things like that. I think that would be well received. We do still distribute telephone books. However, I think most of the community uses online resources to find out numbers, addresses, advertisements, etc. Our school has a website with each teacher listed, and we can be emailed directly from that site. Our school board minutes are public information and can be assessed by the community. We have relationships between the school and our influential community members, but most interactions are positive. Um, I've never been in the post office and had a parent scream at me. I mean, there are teachers who have had that horrible experience, but it's few and far between. The interaction is generally positive. Um, we actually have an extremely supportive community here. The year before I came, they actually helped to fund a $50,000 greenhouse, which for a small town of 1,200 people is just amazing to me. And they still turn out every year, and we still sell out of spring plants every spring because of the supportive community. We're currently trying to get a new wrestling room and new locker rooms for our outside facilities because our old ones, well, they're moldy and gross and not good. And so the community is being really supportive and helping us get that going. Many people in town have power because of money, but it's not necessarily thrown around negatively towards the school. The only place I've ever seen this thrown around is a kid of someone in town who has money saying, well, and then basically just being a brat about it. And then you just want to say, okay, nobody cares. Our school and community being predominantly Caucasian and having traditional values and belief systems integrates not only into our community, but our school as well. Our holidays that we celebrate all mimic the Christian or Catholic calendars, especially with the school calendar, which is very traditional. You know, we have the Christmas break, winter break, whatever, Thanksgiving break, Easter, all your traditional holidays off. Our dress codes are to keep all students modest while still allowing them to express themselves. It's, again, very traditional Western Kansas town. We want modest young adults. While we live in a smaller community, there are some who may be considered closed-minded in the areas that may be more accepted in more urban areas, such as things like gay marriage, different races, things like that. However, that number is a very small portion of our population, and it's more representative of the outliers. It's just you tend to focus on the bad. Our power structure, Hoxie is predominantly Republican with conservative beliefs. As a school, we generally don't have any great influence by parties of power in our community. I think our community is split on how it feels about our schools. I think they're positive towards our teachers and that we want the best for kids, but for a long time, things that have been very lax at the leadership level in our high school, I would say our community is ready for change. Our new superintendent has helped greatly, I believe, in reaching out to the community. Every week, he does a newsletter to anyone who wants to receive it. Even if you don't have a kid in school, you can sign up just with your email and to get this newsletter to keep them updated on what's happening in your school. When asked if this person believed our school does what's best for kids, they said most of the time yes, not doing anything intentionally to harm kids, like the teachers aren't like being malicious towards them. What they would change about our schools, they would change the schedule so that core classes aren't at the end of the day and increase expectations of students. As like I said before, things have been very lax. How they feel we communicate with parents and community. The grade school definitely does a better job than the high school does. And I think part of that is as kids age, we expect them to have a little bit more responsibility in communicating at home. However, I think as kids become teenagers, they kind of want to talk to their parents less. So, but the current leadership tends to be very hush-hush about things that they could be very transparent. There's no reason for them to need to be hush-hush. That is my Module 5. Thank you.